We're going into the mythos, the founding sort of stories that the Greeks tell themselves. Now, according to the myth, there was this big wedding for the sea goddess Thetis, and there was a mortal king named Peleus. And basically every god and goddess on Mount Olympus was invited to pull up. Every god was accepted except for one, and that's Eris. Eris is the goddess of discord. Yes, she's a gaming mod. And she lives in a basement. No, not that discord. She is the goddess of basically chaos, of sowing dissent, and was left off the guest list for obvious reasons, right? If I'm having a wedding, I'm not inviting Eris. I have a few Erises in my life, and I didn't invite them. But you don't want that kind of thing showing up at the party. But what does Eris do? Classic goddess of discord, shows up uninvited and tossed a golden apple into the crowd. And in it, or on it rather, was inscribed a single phrase, "For the fairest." Literally, like, yo, the baddest bee in here, you guys get the apple. So then 3 goddesses immediately claimed it, right? Hera, queen of the gods, Athena, the goddess of wisdom and war, and Aphrodite, goddess of love. Zeus wisely refused to judge the contest himself, like, because obviously that's a pretty, like, because Zeus is married to, come on, bro. You don't know this, Christos?
I should, but I don't.
You should. I think Hera. I think Zeus and Hera. But I don't know. I'm just kind of like swinging here. It is Hera, right?
It was Hera.
So Zeus and Hera are married, and all of a sudden, he's at this wedding. His wife pulls up and goes, "Can you judge who's the hottest? Me or these other 2 women?" And he's like, "Oh, God, I'm not. Can't get involved in that." So he doesn't. And instead, he sent the 3 goddesses to a young Trojan prince named Paris, or Paris.
Body.
Oh, you say body?
Yeah.
That's kind of nice.
It's Greek.
Body. I'm going to say Paris. And basically, Paris is the son of King Priam, and as you know, Priam of Troy. So each goddess offers Paris a bribe. Hera offered him power, dominion over all of Europe and Asia, which is kind of funny that the goddess of all the goddesses was like, "I'll give you some of the land." Like, I'm assuming in the story it was like all that they knew, but it's funny that they were like, she was like, "Yeah, you're not going to get Argentina. That's crazy. You're not going to get Morocco."
Why would they?
I'm just saying, if you're offering this whole bribe to get this golden apple to be the fairest of them all, you would think you should up the ante. Regardless, all right? Athena offers him wisdom and skill in battle. He would never lose a war. That's a pretty good sales pitch. That actually, I think, is better than land. Well, actually, you do war to get land. Anyway, Aphrodite offers the most beautiful woman in the world. Yeah. It's kind of funny that even way back then, they were like, yeah, obviously. Because men go to war to what? Get land. And why do they want land? To get women. So just go straight to women. Now, Paris chooses Aphrodite, the most beautiful woman in the world. And that decision, according to the Greeks, is what burned Troy to the ground. The most beautiful woman in the world that is basically offered is Helen. And Helen is married to Menelaus, the king of Sparta. Don't you hate that? I mean, this is like a real like monkey paw thing, because it's like, hey, I assumed when you said the most beautiful woman in the world, it would be a single woman, right? Like that, like, oh, give me the most beautiful woman in the world. And then it's like an 85-year-old. And you're like, what? And they were like, oh, she used to be the most, you didn't specify when, she is the most beautiful of all time.
You're saying married women are 85-year-old women?
I'm just saying, it's like, if you're thinking most beautiful, you just think like, oh yeah, that conditionally would mean, you know, between the ages of like 24 and 35, you know? Is that bad? All right, let me rephrase that. If you're thinking the most beautiful woman in the world, you're assuming, oh, she's not like a criminal. Like, you don't want someone that's going to like murder you. You assume that she's like not psychotic. You assume that she's single.
No STIs?
No, I think beautiful women can have STIs, actually. I think perhaps the most beautiful woman.
Probably,
right? Anyway, now, this guy's the king of Sparta, and Paris sails to Sparta, and whether he seduced her or abducted her depends on like which version you read, but either way, Helen is now chilling with Paris and is going back to Troy. And now Menelaus wants her back, because obviously it's his wife, A, and B, she's the hottest woman in the world. But he had a secret weapon that Paris knew nothing about. So, before Helen had married Menelaus, she had dozens of suitors. Every king and prince and, I mean, just everyone in Greece. They wanted a piece. And her father, fearing that the rejected suitors would start a war amongst themselves, I mean, that's how bad this girl was. He basically made them all swear an oath. Whoever won Helen's hand, The rest would defend that marriage. Think about that. It was a mutual defense pact, and now Menelaus was calling it in. So the man who organized the Greek response was Menelaus' brother, this guy Agamemnon. This is the king of Mycenae and was the most powerful ruler in all of Greece at the time. And Agamemnon didn't just want Helen back. He wanted all of Troy. Yeah, according to later Greek tradition, he assembled the largest fleet of the ancient world, the largest fleet ever assembled, over 1,000 ships, according to Homer, carrying the greatest warriors of the Greek world. Now, let's just pause the story here, all right? We're going to do like a little Lion King 1.5 thing. We're going to talk about what and who is talking about this and how that changes what the story actually is. So, you might have heard of Homer, right? He's the Greek poet that writes the Iliad. And the Iliad is an epic poem about the Trojan War. It was likely the product of, centuries of oral song and storytelling. Some of it is fact, some of it is kind of embellished, some of it's just purely fictional. And it was crystallized sometime around like the 8th or early 7th century BC. Now, by Homer's time, the world that the poet was describing was already gone. And the Iliad doesn't actually cover the entire Trojan War. It just covers a few weeks in the 10th year of the siege. And it centers on one dude, this guy Achilles. Now, every time I think of Achilles, the only thing I think of... Oh, I'm actually curious. What do you think, Christos?
Heel.
Heel, obviously. Come on now. But there's two. One, Hercules has a great little joke on Achilles.
What is it?
It's like there's a statue of Achilles, and then I think Hercules is like looking at it, and he like just taps it very gently, and the whole thing collapses, but he taps it right on the heel. Spoiler alert, sorry. I'm not sorry. It's a 2,000-year-old story. If you don't know by now, that's on you. The other thing I always think about is that one, what is it, Wheel of Fortune, where they try to guess the letters?
Yeah.
This guy's up there, and it's like the warrior Achilles, but there's like 3 letters missing. And he's like, I think I'm going to guess it. And everyone's like, oh yeah, he's got it. It's so obviously the hero Achilles. And then he goes up there and goes, the hero Achilles. And the dude's like, I am so sorry. It's not Achilles. And then
Trebek just looks down.
Literally, he's just like, oh. And it's like, so like you knew it and you're actually getting punished for reading it and not knowing how to pronounce it. That's kind of the bad thing. Like I have friends that say homage. And it's like, you actually know what the word is. You just don't know how to pronounce homage.
I think more people are saying homage now than homage.
Yeah, maybe. And then eventually that's just going to become the word. Regardless, it's just the funniest video ever. The hero Achilles. And just going, oh. And then it goes to the person right next to him. The hero Achilles? Everyone's like, yeah. And then it just cuts back to his face. And he's just like, oh. All-time clip. Regardless, that guy, Achilles from Wheel of Fortune, he's basically the greatest warrior that Greece has ever produced. His mother was the goddess Thetis. Remember her from the whole thing? According to the later legend, she had dipped him in the river Styx as an infant, making him invulnerable. He was completely protected and virtually immortal everywhere, except for the very heel where she held him. Would you think that she would just do the whole job, right?
Get her fingers in that thing. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Oh, my fingertips are now invincible. It's like, all right, both of you guys jump in head first. I don't even understand. Regardless, the famous story comes from later tradition, not from the Iliad itself. Homer actually never mentions the river Styx or the heel or any of that stuff. Achilles was fast and ferocious and was terrifying in general. He was just a beast, all right? He knew, because a prophecy had told him, that he had 2 possible fates, that he was either going to live a long, quiet life and just be forgotten, or he could fight at Troy and die young but be remembered as a hero forever. And as you can imagine, for the reasons that we're obviously talking about him, he chooses glory. But alongside Achilles is this iconic cast of characters, all right? And they have made the Iliad kind of what it is, this lasting, influential piece of literature. And they also shaped so much of storytelling and character development and like side characters, like stuff that we still use to this very day. So on the Trojan side was this guy, Hector. This is the eldest son of King Priam and the commander of Troy's armies. And this is where Achilles fought for personal glory. Hector was fighting for something different. He was fighting for his city and for his family, and most importantly, for his infant son. In the Iliad, Homer actually gives us one of the most heartbreaking, like the saddest visuals ever, maybe in all of literature. Hector is reaching for his baby boy, and the child is crying because he doesn't recognize his father in his war helmet. And Hector laughs and takes off his helmet and holds his son, and he knows that he's probably going to die and never see this boy grow up, but he fights anyway. Beautiful. Could bring a tear to my eye. But it's not. And then there is Odysseus, the king of Ithaca. This is like the smartest, sharpest dude in all of the Greek army. He didn't really want to go to Troy at all. And so when the recruiters arrived, Odysseus pretended to be crazy. He was like plowing his fields with salt, which would obviously destroy your fields. But the story goes that they placed his infant son in front of the plow. And then when Odysseus swerved to avoid the child, they knew that he was actually faking it. Which, I don't know. Like, I could imagine someone being crazy is like, yeah, I think that, I am Jesus Christ, but also I'm not going to kill my kid. Anyway, so then they go to war, and his cunning eventually, would end it. And then there was Ajax, this massive, immovable beast of a man carrying a shield said to be made of 7 layers of ox hide and a layer of bronze. He was the Greek wall. He was the man who basically held the line when everyone else broke. And then, of course, Patroclus, Achilles' closest companion and the person that he loved the most in the world. And remember that name because we'll come back to him in a second. Now, on the Trojan side, alongside Hector, obviously you have Paris, more of a lover, kind of thief type dude than a fighter, and kind of starts this whole, saga. And then you have the aging king Priam, who had built Troy into one of the wealthiest cities in the ancient world and would then live to watch it burn down. Now, let's move on to the siege. According to the wider mythic tradition, especially later epics, the Greeks besieged Troy for 10 years. A decade of fighting and raiding the surrounding countryside and skirmishes, and just Troy's fortifications were legendary. It had these massive stone walls that the myths claimed were built by the gods Poseidon and by Apollo themselves. The Greeks couldn't break through. They just couldn't. And the Trojans couldn't drive them away. So as a result, they were kind of just stalemated for 10 years. The Iliad picks up the story in that 10th year, right at the very end, and it begins with this catastrophic argument. So you got Agamemnon, the Greek commander. He's basically taken a war prize. He captured a woman named Chryseis, and Chryseis' father is a priest of Apollo. So when Agamemnon refuses to return her, Apollo sends a plague through the Greek camps. Achilles publicly affronts Agamemnon and is like, bro, what are you doing? Give the girl back. Everyone's dying. Agamemnon agrees. But then he takes Achilles' war prize, a woman named Briseis, as compensation. Achilles is obviously humiliated, and his response changes the course of the entire war. He refuses to fight. He withdraws to his tent, and he stays there while the Trojans basically push the Greeks back to their ships. Without Achilles, the Greeks are suddenly losing. Hector leads the Trojans on a devastating offensive, nearly burning the Greek fleet completely to the ground. And this is where Patroclus makes this fateful decision. Remember, that's the guy that Achilles loves. He goes to Achilles and begs him to return to battle. And Achilles basically refuses and says, I'm not going. That dude took my girl. I'm out. Now, Patroclus asks for the next best thing, permission to wear Achilles' armor and basically lead his men to go fight. And Achilles agrees, but he warns him, hey, you can go, put on my armor. They'll think it's me. Push the Trojans back from the ships, but don't do anything else, and then we'll figure it out. Now, Patroclus does a lot more. He gets a little sugar high from this little skirmish. So, wearing Achilles' armor, he rallies the Greeks and drives the Trojans all the way back to the walls of Troy. Now, the Trojans think that Achilles has returned and they panic. But Patroclus pushes too far. He doesn't listen to Achilles. He reaches the walls of the city itself, and there, Hector kills him. Now, right off the bat, let's just be clear about what happens next, because it is one of the most devastating sequences in all of ancient literature ever. When Achilles learns that Patroclus is dead, he lets out a scream so terrible that, according to the story, his mother hears it at the bottom of the ocean. He doesn't just grieve, he's destroyed. And his grief turns into a rage that is just all-consuming, and it becomes so much that it becomes the driving force of the entire poem. Achilles returns to battle wearing new armor, forged by the god Hephaestus himself, and cuts through the Trojan armor like wildfire. I mean, the dude's just just passing the ball, bro. He's hot. And so he fills the river Scamander with so many bodies that the river gods rise up in anger. And they're like, what are you doing dumping all these bodies in a river? Finally, outside the walls of Troy, he meets Hector. Homer writes that Hector runs. The greatest Trojan warrior ever sees Achilles and just books it 3 times around the walls of the city because he knows what's coming next. Finally, tricked by the goddess Athena into standing his ground, Hector turns and fights, and Achilles kills him. But Achilles isn't done. He ties Hector's body to the back of his chariot and drags it around the walls of Troy, around the tomb of Patroclus, day after day. And it's in this act of desecration that shocks everyone, even the gods. But again, Achilles was going crazy. He's blind with rage. Now, the Iliad doesn't end with the fall of Troy, but with something quieter, I guess, and in a lot of ways more poetic, a lot more powerful from a rhetorical perspective.